that we love questions from the audience. So you can start commenting your questions now, or you can also add them as we go. I'll be right back on to welcome our guests to the show. Thanks for meeting us for coffee. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for episode 51 of the Meet Me for Coffee podcast. Haven't done the math, but I think 51 means we're probably close on about 2 years of podcasting. So maybe a little more, actually. So thank you guys so much to everyone I know a lot of people listening have been here since the first episode. So I appreciate you guys for that. And if you're new, this is the first time you're listening in, thank you so much for making the time. On that note, would love you guys to drop a comment. Let me know how long you've been listening. Maybe if you remember like the first show you attended, something like that. Would love to kind of hear what got you guys interested in the podcast and what you've loved about it over the couple years we've been doing this. Also, maybe tag a friend that you think has never heard it that would enjoy the podcast. So would love to hear from you guys this morning. Say hello. Let us know that you're here, and we'd love to say hi back. I have quite a few announcements this morning related to saving you guys money on conferences that are upcoming. So if you guys look in the comment section of this live show on LinkedIn, if you guys are listening back to this later on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, any of those platforms, if you jump to my LinkedIn profile, I'll have this episode pinned at the top of the profile. We have $200 off your registration to Manifest, which is still like currently cheaper right now than if you wait to register because it's not till February of 2026. We have early bird pricing still for Trimble, and I have a $150 discount there as well. So the link should automatically have that discount applied that's in this comment section. That's the Trimble Insight Conference that's coming up. And then DATCon. Love me a good DATCon conference. If any of you guys are attending DATCon, I can save you guys $200 on your registration, also in the comments. And good morning, Charles from Austin, Texas. Awesome. And then last but not least, and I think the show that's coming up the soonest would be the JOC Inland Distribution Conference. We've talked about that show a lot on this podcast. We have podcasted live from that show the last year, and it's such a fantastic event. It's probably the most closely related show to today's conversation, which is going to focus a lot on drayage and imports. And so inland focuses a lot on inland drayage, inland rail, and inland truck transportation. And so we'll be joining the team from JOC in September. It's the very end of September, I think like the 29th to October 1st. And I can save you guys 15% off your registration. And there's still advanced rates going on right now. So this would be a great time to register for that. It's a lot of conferences coming up, but they're not till fall. September, October, and November is when most of those are happening. Would love for you guys to take advantage of the early rates plus the discount right now and save some money. Also, if you guys are going to be going, please let me know. So maybe we could connect for some podcasting opportunities. Hi, Pat. Oh, thank you so much for joining. This is your first podcast. Excited to have you here on the show. Yeah, we've been doing this for almost 2 years, and I guess, no plans at this time to stop. So we'll see. Good morning also to Nirav and everyone else for tuning in, trying to read comments. I'm going to go ahead, though, and bring on my amazing guest today. We have 3 people on the show this morning, which is exciting. Sometimes I have just one guest. So going to bring everyone in here today, and we'll kick off the show this morning with introductions. So Ian, Jason, Anna, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Woo-hoo! Good morning, guys. I will go ahead. We'll start on my screen, which is Ian at the top, and then we'll just work our way around. Would love to hear a little bit more, give our listeners some context as far as who you are, what you do, maybe your background, and a little bit more about your companies as well.
Okay. My name is Ian Weiland. I am the COO of JC Transports. We are a drayage operator operating 350 trucks in LA Long Beach, and we've been around. I've been here 10, 11 years now, and still going strong.
What did you do?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you do before this, Ian?
My background actually is in cold calling. I cold called unrelated to trucking, unrelated to logistics. I called business to business people at work and tried to sell them just randomness. And then when I got into trucking, if you're able to have a conversation in trucking, you're better than 90% of your competition.
Yeah.
And just doing that day after day, repeat, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. I would say I typically, when I'm hiring someone, I'll find out in the first 90 days if they're going to make it or not. And, just put them through the night. I call it 90 and 90, but 90 calls, 90 days, 90 days of just straight cold calls. Realistically, by that time, you'll find out if they're going to make it. 1, 2, you'll have your customer list at least for the next year built.
I would keep toying with the idea of a sales podcast because that's the other half of what I do in this industry. And so maybe we'll have to have Ian on. But I love to hear from some previous, former, current sellers too on the show because that's my day every day. So thanks for being here, Ian. I appreciate it. And I'm excited to hear insights from you too. And then we have 2 people joining us from the Givens Incorporated team. So would love to hear a little bit more about you guys.
So my name's Jason Strickland. I'm Director of Sales here at Givens. I've been in the industry, the maritime port logistics management industry since 2008 when I graduated from Old Dominion University. Kind of backed into it. When I went to get my MBA, I realized that I could live on the water for the rest of my life. So that's kind of how I backed into this and been doing it for almost 17 years now. Before that, I've always been in sales, kind of living in San Diego. I actually did door-to-door sales, and that's how I kind of cut my teeth the hard way, just like the cold calling side of it. So, it's just inherent in me, and I really enjoy the warehouse and transportation game side of it.
I'm Ann Slasky, and I'm a logistics coordinator here. So I'm doing more the day in and day out, like transactional side of it for drayage, warehousing, kind of logistics as a whole. But I have started working here about 2.5 years ago out of college. So still pretty new, but learn something new every single day in this industry because it's always changing.
Yeah, I love that, especially these last 2.5 years. Like what a time to enter. I entered logistics in 2018, the end of 2018. So for everyone who's been in the industry for that long or longer knows that like pretty much nothing since I've been in this space has been precedented or typical. So it's been a really wild ride for me too, trying to adjust to such a.
Yeah, when I first started working here, I feel like we weren't really doing much sales. It was just people came to us, it was flooding, anything was at your fingertips, and now it's like
Yep.
struggle.
The market has changed a lot.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a lot different.
That's a great transition. That's a big reason why I want to have this conversation today and just kind of update a lot of people. I tell people all the time that a lot of these conversations stem from my own curiosity, and I am not as intricately involved in the domestic drayage and the import marketplace. And so this show is a great opportunity for me to learn more about what's going on. Can you guys, before we jump into some questions that I've been thinking up for you guys, can you guys tell me a little bit more about the types of services and the ports that you guys are interacting in to kind of give our listeners a better understanding of what we're going to be talking about today?
Sure. So, I mean, our biggest campus is here in the Port of Virginia, which there's 2 terminals. I've got about 1.7 million square feet and 100 tractors that run in and out of the port, as well as help me deliver goods to the final destinations. I also have a smaller operation down in Savannah. So we work with that Georgia Port Authority as well. And then I've got some other facilities that are dedicated warehouses to our customers that have been with us for a good period of time. I'm out in Seattle, as well as in South Carolina and Reno. So we're a mix of public and private warehousing space, as well as, drayage going in and out of the ports and final deliveries.
Awesome. Thank you. Ian?
I am LA Long Beach. That's where I basically got my start. We run through I run 180 W2 tractors, or drivers, excuse me, with 115 trucks. And then I run about 150-ish owner operators that, help service the overflow. And we have a small terminal with 25 tractors in Chicago, close to Joliet.
Very cool. For anyone who might remember, Ian's been on my show before, at least once or twice, and we were talking about AB5 and some other things related to the whole W2 and contractor stuff a while back. So there's been a lot, developing and evolving in the California marketplace too that we've had to keep up on. Okay, guys, I want to jump into some questions, and I think my first question has just been, I've written a little bit in some of my newsletters that I publish on a monthly basis around import volumes, mostly because of the huge skew that they had to GDP, US GDP in Q4, Q1. We saw a lot of imports come in that far outweighed exports, which is a negative contributor to GDP. But a lot of people were calling that like a pull forward in regards to tariffs. I just kind of want to hear a little bit from you guys. We're on different coasts, maybe one's more impacted than the other, about around what happened maybe end of Q4 into Q1 of this year, and kind of some things that you guys observed throughout that time period. And after we kind of cover that, then maybe take us up to like present day too, like what's led up to where we're at today. So I'll kick that over to the Givens team to start us off with, and then I'll let Ian jump in on the West Coast side.
So, I mean, obviously, when the tariffs kind of went into play, or when the Trump tariffs, when he did his whole presentation in the garden to say everybody's getting tariffed, obviously, for us, we're a foreign trade zone as well as a bonded facility. So our phones started ringing immediately. I mean, in 3 weeks, it was 95 opportunities requesting 300,000 square feet. And people just started buying the bonded space immediately. We didn't have that freight, but they bought the space just so they were protected. And now we're just now starting to see that real uptick in, the drayage coming in, as well as, the freight coming into our building, because they got ahead of it. The customers did. So, I mean, we were kind of in a little bit of a lull prior to that, but, we were well positioned to assist with the tariffs situation. So we've seen a drastic pickup over the past month. It's been significant. And it's been crazy because we're kind of helping guide these customers throughout all this stuff, but also not knowing and having them go back to their customs brokers and the forwarders to understand how we can assist. But across the board, we've been well positioned to assist in this Trump tariff disaster that we're living through.
So, question: if you're saying that volumes are starting to pick up, would that kind of be like the say lead time needed to manufacture and then the actual ocean transit time. Like when these tariffs were announced, it's not like we were going to all of a sudden have I mean, some people were, it seems to me, like concerned about tariffs prior to the actual like announcements. And so maybe there was even an earlier pull forward. But then once they were announced is when this bonded scramble kind of happened. And just based on like time it would take to order product, get product delivered, is that what they were kind of the strategy was? You think PCOs had was like, hey, we're going to have to pull this stuff in anyway. We're not going to obviously beat tariff effective dates. So we need to go for the bonded space to try to give ourselves more wiggle room.
I would say that it was probably just more of a change in business models. For example, I think that's the best way to give you. So we just brought on a customer that licensures and manufactures toys. They've never lived in that space. They've never had to deal with any sort of duty or any sort of tariff. So that was just a ramp up for them to get as educated as possible. I mean, calling the lawyers, calling people that are subject matter experts like ourselves, and it just took them time to change their game, pause everything, change their approach, and then kind of release. So that was the real thing. I mean, because the manufacturing was still going, but they were also holding back at origins as well. So that was the kind of the break in the normal flow of drayage coming in and warehousing opportunities. Them understanding what they were facing, and quite frankly, nobody understood the whole picture of it. So it was everybody just kind of leaning on everybody. And then, after a week or so, you really started to understand because everybody had done their homework. They're like, this is what we need. This is the drayage we need. This is the type of bond we need. So that was the whole kind of slowdown, but now the uptick is arriving.
Got it. Okay. More questions, but we're going to bounce over to Ian, kind of get an update from you on what happened a few months ago.
I see a lot of the same. I think everyone, from what I hear as well as from what I see, there's a lot of pause. It was just like, wait, what? Huh? And it was with everything changing like by the week. It was just, okay, this is this week's plan. Oh, wait. This is next week's plan. This is next week's plan. And today's plan, which was last adjusted 3 weeks ago, is the pause and the we're going to take it down the 30% or whatever it is now. So from what I see here and from what I hear, the wave is coming. I would say June 2nd-ish, the first post tariff announcement. Containers are going to hit here in LA, which at that time, and then give or take like the third week in June, sometime around then, sometime after the 23rd, the COVID style inbound volume will hit. I say what I mean by that is extra loaders, extra containers, extra vessels all coming in. They're going to all hit right around that time period.
So you guys had, like, the West Coast had pretty decent activity at the end of the year. You guys had a pretty good, like, I guess we called it peak, but it rolled through January, right?
As a trucking entity, my best month ever was 2 months ago. Okay. With all the front loading. I mean, it got crazy on the front loading, and we went up. I was up probably 20% over what my high was, my historical high prior to then.
Where do you think a lot of those volumes went, Ian? Are they staying in warehouses on the West Coast, or are those moving into actual inventory throughout the country? Did they try to stay bonded? Do we have any insights onto like where those destinations were?
TBD on that. But I can tell you that they're not. I don't know the exact answer because there was enough warehouse space. Meaning nothing sat in yards, everything turned, everything was empty on time, and empty containers also returned. So I'm not exactly sure where it was sitting. Rail was a little bit backed up, but it wasn't like, oh my God, it's too crazy. I'm not shipping rail. Everyone had enough time. I really think it was just, I would call it almost like normal market situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we that's been interesting too, because we have right now like the rail volumes are not, they were not high. They were not like, we don't have congestion right now. So when that kind of initial pull forward came through, and Given's team, correct me if I'm wrong on your guys' side of things, but I think that everything actually operated pretty efficiently, and we didn't have a lot of like congestion issues or container issues for the most part. So yes, there wasn't quite a spike in volumes, but it seems like things flowed pretty well throughout that time period. So okay. There have been obviously some more recent developments. So you just alluded to it, Ian, on the Chinese tariffs. We obviously saw the pause in tariffs there. And so I think that maybe gave some people more confidence to kind of, I don't know, I want to say like pull in again, bring stuff in again. And so you seem to think that might be happening on the West Coast ports from our Asian importers. Given's team, I just saw it today. I don't know how recent it is, but Trump extended the tariffs with the European Union again, because he's confident negotiations are going to go through. I'm not exactly sure, but I just figured, being more East Coast, a lot of our European imports are coming through to the East Coast ports. So do you expect that to have any impact on any BCO or importer behaviors in the near term future as things are changing and we have more delays on European tariffs?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look from like what we're getting from China through the Port of Virginia, I mean, I was just at the State of the Port 2 weeks ago, and it was noted that 20% of our goods are coming from China into the Port of Virginia. Now we look on the other side to Europe, we see this 50%. There's going to be a much bigger impact to us here in the Port of Virginia than say, the West Coast may feel on that side of it. So this is now we're looking down that barrel, which I think is going to be a little more scary than China for what we just historically see come into the terminals from those markets.
If you have any numbers, curious, Jason, like what are usually the countries of origin that the Port of Virginia is seeing imports from?
I'd have to pull back the slide. I just remember China being, because that was such a significant tariff. But I mean, there was, for example, I bring in a lot out of South America. I'm heavy in the automotive. Motorcycles are a niche of ours that comes out of Europe as well for some of our customers. So a lot of the South America and Europe is going to impact me more significantly than what we're seeing from the China side.
Gotcha. We got a question. I'm going to put this one up here from Pat for the Givens team. It says, with the high ask for FTZ, how is your dray capacity? I don't know what FTZ is, so somebody can educate me there.
That's the foreign trade zone.
Okay.
So the foreign trade zone has actually not been of a good assistance to the tariffs. What we're finding is the bonded, which we wanted to push everything we could through foreign trade zone because that can commingle domestic freight as well as that foreign trade zone freight, where if it's bonded, which is what we found out was the best solution to shelter from the tariffs, I can't put a broom in that lined off area that is bonded. So that's kind of the two differences there. But I'll let her address the drayage side of it.
Yeah, in terms of drayage, our biggest issue, it's not with the bonded or foreign trade zone, it's getting appointments at the port. I don't know how it is in LA, but that's our struggle. So we have the warehouse space and we have the drivers to do it, but it's getting to the port and being able to go grab those containers. But in terms of the bonded drayage, we're a bonded carrier, so we just can send our drivers in and they're covered.
Yeah.
It just has to be cleared from customs for us to get containers pulled.
Ian, have you guys seen any issues at the ports in LA, Long Beach, getting appointment availability or anything?
I have not.
We got appointments at like 3 a.m., which is not something we can do.
So here we have two terminals that, one, maybe two, it depends on the week. It changes sometimes, but that do operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where it is from the automated terminals where that do operate at those times. But I would say overall, the volume here has not been difficult to manage, especially with what was the surge. I really think I really didn't notice anything crazy. What typically happens here is that the empties can't return, and that just creates a cluster. But that hasn't been the case. My guess was like 3 months ago. My guess was that it was happening. It was going to happen. Vessels were going to stop coming in. The terminals were going to stop receiving the empties. Here we go again. Blah blah blah. The same song and dance during COVID. But honest answer, that didn't happen. If it happened with anyone, that would be, I would say, provider specific, and it's not an actual market condition because I didn't notice it here.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. I just I've heard nothing really as far as from shippers, as far as struggles with, getting things returned, getting things out on time, getting appointments. So that kind of aligns with what I'm hearing. 2 years of podcasting, first time my son's ever been here to walk in on the podcast. So had to tell him goodbye.
Bring him in, bring him in.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I want to go ahead and ask you guys if when I covered the recent surges in imports, we had some really interesting things that I found really interesting. One, I'm pretty sure you guys weren't moving any containers of solid gold bars, but apparently at the end of last year, we imported a ton of gold. I don't think that was probably something that was just shoved into containers. Could be wrong. But then in a lot of this tariff pull forward, I covered that a significant amount of that front loading was in electronics and computers and pharmaceuticals. And so I don't know, I would just be curious if either of your companies actually experienced, working with any companies that were bringing in any of those types of products. And then aside from that, what other industries have you guys observed or seen maybe be a little bit more proactive, a little bit more affected by tariffs, or have there been any notable trends, or is it just kind of anyone and everyone who's importing is having these conversations right now?
I really think it's anyone and everyone. If I were to mention industries, it's more so that's just because for me here, we're near the furniture. Most of the furniture in the world is manufactured in Asia. That said, LA Long Beach is the shortest distance, so it's just a pure numbers game. I think the number is 30% of what comes into LA Long Beach is furniture, whether it be, but it's just numbers. I think my take on all this is that all these logistics companies a lot of them, shippers, BCOs, their logistics departments, it's one or two people, maybe three, a large one is four. That do import export. I mean, the domestic department's probably a little bit bigger, but the import export, it's not a large department. So if you have Sally who's wearing 16 hats at the moment, and if you're trying to say, "Hey Sally, I'm going to really need you to hammer in and figure out what's going on with this customs," the shit's going to go sideways, right? It's just a matter of, because her attention span is already on the 8 hours a day, or however many hours a day she works. But it's there. She's already maxed out in most cases. So now you've just added another complexity to her daily task or schedule. Realistically, something's going to falter because everyone needs to stop and focus on, what's going on with these tariffs and how are we affected? Because the boss wants to know. 99% of the time, the CFO wants to know, hey, what sort of exposure? And then they start their planning process. And this is like anyone else. The trucking companies are the same. They start their planning process. Well, everything's changed 3 or 4 times since that planning process has started.
Yeah.
That's the boat every single entity is in right now. That there is no way for anyone to plan. Planning's out the window.
I think that I love your call out about the because I sold in this space for 6 years or so, and I sold all sorts of solutions, but that was always my experience. You might have 10 people on domestic transportation teams, and then there was 1 or 2 people who handled import dray. And so, and you're right, they have a lot going on. So I think that these teams rely a lot on their drayage partners, on their forwarding partners to be trying to help provide the information and supply the industry news and outlooks and what's going on. Because I think I have long said that most decision makers struggle with having to do all the things that have to be done while also staying up to date on everything that's going on and trying to possibly consume all the information, especially in the last 7 years in our rapidly changing environment. So how have both of you guys, Givens and JCT, how have you guys been kind of called upon maybe by BCOs or by forwarders or anything like that to help provide information that, quite frankly, people just don't have the time to go research for themselves?
I mean, that was something that we've been facing a lot of recently, because but quite frankly, we've had to push back to the brokers, to the forwarders, and say, hey, I don't know your origins, I don't know your HTS codes. Like, I'm going to need you guys to do your homework, and then we can tell you how we can plug and play into what our service offering is. So again, we've tried to keep a little bit of a distance from guiding people as to what they need, because there's always stuff that I don't know about your business that I'm going to push to your team to figure out.
Good. Ian, any more thoughts on that front?
When it comes, I'm similar situation. Like when it comes to customs, I'm not your guy. When it comes to ocean shipping and contracts, I'm not your guy. I can help you with, do I prepay for a chassis or not? But and those and I got you once it lands. But other than that, I try to stay in my lane. I don't do domestic transportation. I mean, I can quote, don't get me wrong, but I stay in my lane. If I am not comment domestic, I will not comment on LTL. I will not comment on reefer, flatbed. I'll stay in my lane. I do dray, I do transload, I do heavy, I do hazmat, I do, when it comes to LA Long Beach.
Well, I might have lost Ian for a minute. Okay, well, I'll take over from what he was saying there. And I was going to say that I think that this is a time where we all want information. We all need information, but everyone's really head down focusing on what does this mean for me, for the services I'm providing, for my vertical. And so that's probably going to be something that is a little bit of a challenge when it comes to maybe like these shippers who wear a lot of hats, or to these freight forwarders who need a lot of information. So I would love to hear if any shippers do listen into this and you guys want to shoot me a private message or drop a comment or something. Would love to hear how you guys have been kind of navigating this and doing a balancing act of keeping up with everything that's going on and what that means for your business while also operating the still going ongoing day to day. So I'm sure that's something that has just like the pandemic, right? It's not fun. It's like you're constantly trying to make plans just to know that they're probably pointless because they're going to change weeks anyway, and so I'm sure that's not been fun for anyone right now.
One of the biggest issues is kind of going back to the unknown. Is we're in the unknown here. The shippers are in the unknown. The customers, like every single day, it's different, and nobody can make a decision, or because when that decision is made, what's going to be the verdict that day, kind of. So just overall, not knowing what next step to take and how to plan for what's coming.
That kind of leads me into another question I had for you guys is, how has this uncertainty and the just different requests that you guys are getting and the changes in volumes or types of services, has any of this changed your guys' operations? And has it caused like challenges to your daily operations, or just curious to know as drayage and transload providers, has this been, operationally stressful or different for you guys to navigate?
For us, I think it's just space, but that's kind of Jason. I mean, we have so many people reaching out to us saying we need this much space, we have this much coming in, but they're not going forward with anything yet because they don't know when if they're gonna have to pay 150% tariffs on it or 30% or what. So we plan for this much space, and it's like, oh, just kidding, we don't need it because tariffs are done, or there's a pause, or it's just it's ever changing. But you're in the
I mean, for us, it really was, once we figured it out, the class 3 bonded is what we needed to support, the current customers and the new opportunities. Well, once I make that bonded, I have signs up for Border Patrol as well as it lined off. I can't put anything else in there that's not bonded. So that
Okay.
kind of paints me in a corner. The other side of it too is talking with your current book of business and trying to determine their needs while the opportunities were coming in fast and furious from the outside. So it was a bit of a balancing act because you got to stay, respectful to your current book of business, but you also want to capture more market share to grow with the opportunity in front of you. So
yeah, this just reminds me so much of like different market volatilities we saw around the pandemic where providers have to weigh the pros and cons of saying like, okay, if we're going to allocate space to this type of hot need, but then how temporary is that hot need? And once we commit to allocating space, how hard is it to unravel? And I mean, we saw there was a lot of brokers and carriers that maybe aren't even around anymore or have downsized a lot because during the pandemic, they outlaid a lot of capital commitments into what was actually like what was temporary volumes. And then when that volume went away in late 21 into 22 and definitely 23, they had leases and they had purchased properties and equipment and things that just were never going to be needed long term, but the investments were made. And so I think that caused, a lot of shrink for a lot of companies, and some of them even maybe went, belly up in those investments. So it's really difficult because I know, especially as a salesperson, and Jason, you're in sales, and Ian, you're like, we want to say yes because it's an opportunity, it's business. But then we have to step back and say, like, how viable is this and how sustainable is this going to be after the next month? Or unfortunately, in this case, is this even still going to be needed in a week or 2 weeks? So
or an hour.
Or in an hour, or depending on the next tweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Had to. I actually have never had. I call it. What's it called now? It's not a tweet. I've never had a Twitter. Never had an X, and so I'm like, man, I've never felt more compelled to need to have like an X account to know what's going on with global supply chain than I do at this moment. So
entertaining.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me check here, see if we have any more questions. Guys, if you are listening in the audience and you have more questions, we would love to hear those. Anything you guys can think about, import drayage levels. The last kind of question I wanted to ask you guys is, if you were giving advice right now, if I wasn't me, if you were talking directly to like a BCO or to a forwarder, or even just a broker trying to serve their clients, like what type of advice or recommendations would you be giving to people right now who are handling their company's import volumes?
I foresee this lasting. I mean, this is just. I foresee this the rush here that is upcoming. I foresee it lasting 4 months. That, and then my recommendation to anyone that maybe even if it's 5, my recommendation to anyone that's in that, like, lock someone in now. I mean, volumes are dead, like right now, right? There's tons of capacity in the market. I would not, and I saw some, I got back some bid sheets this morning. This is a kind of a sidebar, but like relevant right now. I got some bids back for what would be round 2, round 3 this morning, and it's multiple. And the rates that came back are, I would say, reflect today's market where everyone has capacity, and do not reflect what's going to happen in a month, where if those who pull the trigger, at those rates are going to shoot themselves in the foot, because that may be one truck behind that container volume, where the request is actually for 100. I foresee that coming here shortly, and it always bites everyone in the butt in the beginning. It's like, yeah, we're not doing that load, and the number of rejections, like for drayage, there aren't like a ton of. It's not like an over-the-road tender rejection. Like, you go to your guys, and if your guys reject you, you feel heartbroken, right? That's just how it is, because not everyone, like, oh, I have 100 carriers that we utilize. That's bullshit. You have like 2 or 3 that they use, and maybe per operator may be different, but whatever. But once they start rejecting loads, once they raise the rates, 9 times out of 10, the person on the other end's like, okay, I understand. And you know, they just party on. They may get their feelings hurt. And I have a strong sense some people get their feelings hurt come up in June.
I think that LA Long Beach is such a unique beast to me because I know I saw one of your posts, it was a few weeks ago, but you said that you guys have received like 3x to 4x the number of driver applications right now from owner operators, meaning these people don't have any volumes to move elsewhere. And so in general, when there's, you know, desperation in the marketplace to keep wheels turning, you're right. And there's RFPs happening at the same time. Like I would probably be pretty leery of paper rates at that point too. And then understanding that they might be happy to run at those rates for, you know, the first week or so of loads. But once they realize that supply and demand is kind of shifting a little bit more, they won't be happy to run at those rates. And that's going to leave
no.
exposed positions.
So what that was market owner ops somewhere else that wanted to come to work here as a W-2 driver. Yeah. Those are a lot of them they're getting tired of every day having to look for a load where they're making maybe $100, $75, $200, whatever it may be, but it's not consistent. So when you're a guy behind the wheel, consistently having to go to multiple sources to say, hey, do you have any? 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 I mean, it wears people down. It really does. And over time, it's just like, this isn't worth it. You can see trucker pages or tout similar mindsets, but it's not. You can't do it long term. You really can't. So when they get tired is when there's like, all right, I'm ready to be. I'm throwing my entrepreneurships out the window. I'm ready to become a W-2.
It makes total sense. I feel like driver applications for the few companies, because not a lot of companies will do W-2 positions from my understanding, or that's evolving still. I feel like that's a great way to measure, like, you know, the stress in the marketplace there, because if you're an owner operator, it's great in a high market, and it can be really tough when you don't have loads to move and a paycheck coming in markets like what we've seen the last couple of months. So really, I think that's a really interesting insight that your company gets through those applications as to how the overall sentiment is for the actual drayage operators in the LA Long Beach area. So thanks.
That or the engine goes up on the truck, they come back, they come in like that.
Yeah, that's true. An expensive fix. That'll do it. Any other final thoughts or advice in regards, like outside of just pricing, to anyone in the drayage spaces right now? Do you guys see, are there any dates we're paying attention to right now for like announced changes, tariff effective dates, anything like that we're kind of keeping eyes and tabs on that are important and upcoming?
We never know.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, we didn't even know about the European change until I think literally yesterday. So more delays. Well, if anyone has questions or has heard anything that's kind of making them want to have, a more deeper conversation with any of you guys, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you guys?
Well, we're on
for
LinkedIn.
Me here,
Our Givens page, and also I have my personal LinkedIn and with Jason as well.
Yeah, LinkedIn would probably be the best route. If anybody has any questions, we're Givens. Pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Anna's full name, is it Anna, right?
Yes.
Okay, Anna Salaki. She's on LinkedIn. And then Jason Strickland on LinkedIn. Jason's also big time, and he just had a TV interview, I think. I saw that. Yeah. So you guys can go check that out. I love following.
That's pretty exciting. We'll see how it goes. It's a bit of a leap of faith, Like, how do they cut me up?
Yeah.
Our warehouses too.
You probably had like 3 hours of content, and they were going to pick like the 10 minutes that you're like, really, that part?
About right.
No, but they had a great interview with Lorianne LaRocco on who's someone I love to follow when I do get into more of the global trade and import space. And so there's an interview out there. They talk about their bonded warehouses. I think you guys gave a bonded warehouse tour, some other stuff. So that's really cool. You guys can find Ian on LinkedIn. He's always talking there. You know, his just mouth is always moving and we love it. No.
Good or bad. Good or bad, loved or hated. Yeah, I have it all. I mean, I love it.
He puts out a lot of really helpful content, and that's part of the reason I actually thought about having this episode was because of some of the updates I was following from his personal LinkedIn page. So that's great there. And then, of course, their company, I think Junction Collaborative Transports, JCT, they have a LinkedIn page as well. And then you guys can find both of these guys at their company websites. So also, if you just listen back to this on LinkedIn or anywhere else and you just want to jump in here and leave a comment, ask a question, just tag them. LinkedIn's really easy for that. So you can just tag myself, Ian, Anna, Jason, any of us in the comments, and we're happy to come back and answer that anytime in the future. So we appreciate all of you guys for listening in, for the comments that we did get and the questions that we already had today. And thank you guys all for making time to be on the show this morning.
Thank you. Amazing.
Thanks everyone for listening in, and we appreciate you all for meeting us for coffee.